the economy's falling apart, the interest rates are too high, inflation this, war that. It's like, holy cow, you're still living at home. Why aren't you buying a house? That's where the conversation needs to go. You're still renting. How long are you going to rent? Adapting is part of the game plan in order to grow long term. No business just builds it right the first time, right? We have to constantly pivot. We have to constantly take the steps to adapt with the market. And with real estate, it is a very volatile type of industry. It can change from 1 month to the next. And in fact, it could change from 1 week to the next. And we've seen that many times here over the last 3-4 years. And we have to be aware of that we can't fight, what the industry does. We can't feel, like we're falling apart just because the industry decided to change. We can't decide that we no longer have the skill sets to be able to adapt just because things are not working like they used to. These are the things that we have to constantly be on the forefront. Otherwise, we will be left behind. We will be there sitting, twiddling our thumbs, determining like what's happening here. And I wish things, would remain the same. Like, why is it that things are always changing? Almost frustrated, right? Trying to fight this whole notion that things shouldn't be this way. And, and when you start looking at it from that perspective, those that are able to continue to grow and prosper year after year are the ones that are not resisting what is happening, right? They only have a couple of choices that they can make here. They accept it, and then they take actions necessary with the changes that are happening. Because it doesn't matter how much you pout about it. It doesn't matter how much you complain about it. Things are not going to change. The market will shift the way it does. And a lot of it's driven by, the media, social media. It's driven by interest rates. It's driven by all these outside sources, right? Which I like to call the worldview. The worldview will tell your consumer when is a good time and when is a bad time to buy. And I even read an article yesterday that says, hey, we're about to hit the bottom of our market. What they don't understand is that the information that they're looking at is 3 to 4 months behind. We all know as professionals in this industry that the market has been picking up significantly month after month after month since January. I mean, things are getting so good that in August it's projected that we're in a better situation than we were in August of last year. That's year over year growth. But you will not hear that on the news. And that's why it's so important that we don't buy into that. And here's a little hint to you. Your competition is hearing that all around them. They don't know how to be able to communicate to their clients because all they're hearing, and they can't tell their clients it's a good time to buy because all they're hearing, and they're buying into the negativity or the facts that are 3 to 4 months old. They're not really letting them know what's happening right here, right now. That it is a very good time to buy. But if you don't have that confidence, they're going to go with someone that is showing them that confidence. Or, as a matter of fact, you're just leaving them on the fence where they don't make any decision. And understand this, that in any market, there's always going to be a need to buy or sell. But it also has to go with how you follow up, how you consistently communicate to your clientele base, regardless if they just bought a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. These are the things that requires many skill sets that many agents just don't want to continue to invest in because it's so awkward for them sometimes, right? It's so awkward to go back to a client knowing that they're not necessarily going to buy, but that's an assumption that we have to get away from. My neighbor is a perfect example of that. And he only bought his house a year and a half ago, but he realized now that the house is too big for him and his wife. They're in a retirement age. It's too big. They don't want all that responsibility. It's hard to maintain. So they decided to downgrade. Not even 2 years living in that home. And this is something that he realized. And understand that your clients, regardless of when they bought their home, doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be there for the long haul. Yes, the average is about 5 years, but that's an average. That means many people stay 10 to 20 years and others stay less than a year. But if you assume that they're no longer a client, then you're always going to be in that place where you're not going to have enough of your reoccurring clientele base because you're already assuming. So it comes down to the fact that if you don't follow up, you're not going to get the residuals. You're not going to get the returns that you ultimately should have in your business. And I got to tell you, their agent is very diligent on being able to stay on top of them. As a matter of fact, I had that conversation. I said, what kind of follow-up does your agent do? He says, I at least get a phone call from her every month. And it's not only that, it's what I get through the mail. It's always like sending me text messages of things that are going on in our neighborhood. Like, she is on it. And that's why as soon as we considered selling, I called her, and she was the one who represented me on the purchase. That's what I call a veteran agent. That's what I call someone who's able to adapt. And as a matter of fact, just stay with the basics of what we should do as real estate agents. And one of the things that I noticed about 2021, which was one of the peak years in our market, okay, versus today, is that if you look at the worldview, okay, the worldview is saying, well, sales are down 30%. That is a fact. If we compare 2021 numbers during this time versus 2023 numbers, the fact is, yes, there are 30% less home sales. But there's always a flip side to every situation, right? And during that time, there were many, many agents selling a lot of real estate, right? There was just a lot of agents selling a lot of real estate. People who didn't necessarily, have the skill sets, didn't have the marketing. They just had a license and they were selling real estate. So the biggest difference that I saw that is happening from 2 years ago to now is that less people, less qualified individuals were also selling real estate. Now, the biggest difference is that less agents are selling more real estate. And when I say less agents, it's usually the more qualified individuals, those that just didn't get into it running, right? Because a lot of agents got into the industry and they started closing deals right away. But they missed a lot of steps in the development process. It's not just 1 or 2 TikTok videos that will always work. It's like there's a skill set, there's a follow-up process. And when the industry's so good, we don't have to hone on to those skill sets about following up, about having conversations, texting, mailing, door knocking, or doing these pop buys. Like, none of that's required because the market is hot. 30% more sales 2 years ago than there is today. You didn't have to do much. So the biggest pivot for a lot of agents was like, how do I give a higher level of service? How do I engage my clients? How do I make them know that I'm the only person they should ever speak to? And the best way to do that is through your sheer consistency and determination and not holding back and not buying into the noise that it's all falling apart. A lot of our top agents had to understand that they had to have the faith that this is just a small dip in the market, that it's going to correct themselves. And with any change in the market, there's usually about a 30 to 60 day hesitation from clients before they start moving forward. Because again, there is a need. My neighbor has a need to sell. The house is too big. Regardless of what taxes they need to pay, regardless of the inconvenience that they now have to move, the house is too big. But if the agent were to tell them, well, it's not a good time to sell right now, the sales price or sales are down by 30%. If they bought into that, then they would just be in a situation they don't want to be in. But because the agent, and I'm assuming this, is able to say, hey, $1 million home sales, multi-million-dollar home sales are still in hot demand, especially in these areas, they were able to pull the trigger. And we always have to approach our clients in that format. We can't give them a solution based on the worldview. If they say the interest rates are too high, you're never going to win that conversation. You got to get back to the core of why they were looking to buy in the first place. Because at the end of the day, when somebody has a need, it doesn't matter what it costs. People are going to fulfill that need. People were paying $40,000 above, vehicles, cars, the ones that are like the worst investment ever. People were paying way above because there was a need. There was a lot less inventory and there was a need to purchase. They still need to go to their job. They still want to feel good about what they drive. So they fulfilled that need. So if you're talking to them on a worldview basis, you're always going to lose that conversation. You got to go back to what their need is. If someone's talking about selling, but it's not a good time because values have gone down, and you stay at that level where you're like, well, yes, I know we're 30%, and you only have that conversation on the higher level or the worldview level, and not necessarily based on what they need. The fact is they're still driving an hour and a half to their job. The fact is they settled when they bought 2 years ago. The fact is they don't like their home anymore. It's too small. It's too big. So you have to go back to their self view and not the world view. The interest rates are too high. So you ask the question is, what kind of interest rate would make you pull the trigger? Because let's talk about this, right? Not many of your clients have paid the full interest rate that is out there. Many have bought it down. Maybe many of your clients have had the seller pay the buy down, or new home builders have paid a buy down. But that's the way you have to approach it. But if you're only having conversations on the worldview and not specifically to what they need, then you'll always be stuck there. So that's one of the things that many of the agents that are succeeding now are going back to the need of that specific client and not buying into the worldview. It's not a good time to buy. Well, when would be a good time to buy? Okay? Because 2 years ago, people were paying 103% above list price. That's an average. That means a lot of people paid 10% or more. And some only paid, maybe 1% or less. But as a whole, people were paying 103% more versus today where they're paying 98% to the list price. So they're actually already getting an equity of 5% if you look at it from that format. But if you don't know the facts, you don't study the market, that's going to be hard for you to give those facts to your clients. Instead, you'll be like, yeah, I guess the interest rate is too high. And yes, sales are down 30%. But I also have another contradiction to the worldview, that we are selling more real estate this year as a company, and I'm very proud of this, and I'm very proud of you all. We have more sales this year versus 2021. How is that possible if the market is down 30%? Because there's another view on this. There's a flip side to every worldview. There's a self view. We've been focusing on delivering for our clients specifically, not for the masses, specifically to them. We've honed in on our skill sets, not based on the masses, but based on what we have to do to stay competitive. These are the things that we have to think about. These are the things that we have to do. We understand that our ability to pivot and move depends on our commitment to show up each and every day. And when you look at the facts are in your client's favor, both buyer and seller. Okay, it's not one way or another. It's a very balanced market. I love it. Yes, sellers might have a little bit of an advantage, but this is what we want. And you got to be able to express that to your clients. But if you're only stuck on what you're hearing, then you're having the same conversation that your client has been listening to the entire time. The economy's falling apart. The interest rates are too high. Inflation this, war that. It's like, holy cow, you're still living at home. Why aren't you buying a house? That's where the conversation needs to go. You're still renting. How long are you going to rent? Because I always looked at homes as a form of stability. And many of our agents have pulled the trigger here over the last, 12 months for that same reason. They weren't concerned about the interest rate. They weren't concerned if the property is going to go up or down. They want a better quality life for their family. And that's what they focused on. So we got to go back to our client and focus on that, not on the interest rate. That's surface level. Why is it important for them to buy or sell? So my neighbor, I'm sure the pain point was, well, the house is too big. Because we can give solutions based on what the market is right now. We have zero solution for something we don't know anything about. Make sense? You have zero solutions for something you know nothing about. The future, we know nothing about it. So if the interest rate is too high, we have a solution for that. Right? If somebody wants to sell, but listen, they don't know if it's going to go up or down in the future. All we know is that this is the maximum amount of money we can get you for your house right now. That is a fact. So we must be able to speak to our clientele in that in that format. And I think we've done a really good job. If the rest of the market is down 30% and we're growing as a company, we're doing the right things. That means we're listening to our clients. We're following up. And if you're not doing that right now, then you start now. Because your clients, your competition, I should say, your competition is stuck on the worldview. When in fact, like, we're going to be up year over year as far as values. Is it a good time to buy? Yes. I mean, I just told you. People 2 years ago were paying 103% above list price. Right now, they're paying 98% less to list price. And many times, they're even asking for closing costs, depending on where it's at. So there's a huge savings there. I see that as equity. But more than anything, you're fulfilling the need for your client. Okay, because at the end of the day, if they stay in that neighborhood one more day, that's not going to make them any happier. If they have to commute from their home to their job, that hour and a half, one more day, they're still not going to be happy. So they're holding on to this idea because it's being reinforced over and over and over again by their family, their friends, their media, social media, and everything else. You have to be able to collide with them and tell them, here are the facts. And fact is, like, none of my clients have paid 7% in interest rates. Here's what we've done. And then that changes their worldview. So when we start looking at things from that standpoint, we can always fulfill and help our clients be able to get what they want. Thought I shut that down. So the reality is this, there's a huge need. And don't buy into the fact that things are slowing down, because I just showed you we're going to have a better year. We're going to have a better July, and the numbers are still coming in. We're already matching what we did last year. I mean, 2 years ago, the peak of it, we already beat last year. Okay, 2 years ago, and I'm comparing it to 2021 because our agents, our veteran agents, our agents that didn't stop, didn't hesitate, are selling more real estate. And overall, as a company, I'm very proud of that, because that means somewhere else out there, some companies are down 30% or more. But we've been able to pivot and move because we understand we have to listen and express empathy to our clients' concerns. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and run down what I use whenever there's an objection, whenever there's someone that says it's not a good time to buy, or they give me their concerns, their pain points, right? I'm going to go ahead and run it down, and I'm going to try to break it down into finer details so that you have a game plan. And if you've been to our trainings lately, you've seen the kind of game plans we've had and the kind of tutorials we have written up for you so that you're able to follow that framework that works. Because a lot of this is about just understanding the human psychology, human behaviors. Okay? But you got to be able to understand what the market is. So that's why it's important that you're constantly in the MLS. You're constantly reading articles of what's happening, because there's a contradiction there that you have to be aware of. Okay? And that's the stuff that your clients are buying into. So, yes, I mean, there's 30.5% less inventory. 30.5% less sales versus 2 years ago. But your clients are also paying less and have a better selection. So one of the assignments that I want you to do today is go back to those that bought 1.5 to 2 years ago and revisit with them. Many of those clients bought based on a knee-jerk reaction, meaning they had no choice. They had to submit their offer right away. They had to just accept of whatever was of their property in order to get their hands on it. But the beautiful part about it is they have equity. They have equity. I promise you, they have equity. They may not have $200,000 in equity, but they have equity. Okay? More than what people over the last, 8 years have. This is their time frame of buying it within the last 2 years have given them significant returns. So we have to revisit with them. And you'll find out that many of them bought on a knee-jerk reaction, bought because the demand was so high, and they didn't necessarily like that they only had 3 homes when they really wanted 4. They really didn't want a 2-story home, but they settled for it when they really wanted a single story, or vice versa. They really didn't want to move in that side of town, but accepted it because that's all they could afford at that time. And they needed to make that decision right away, or else they would lose it. So now we go back, okay? But one of the things that I wanted to talk about here, and I'm going to wrap this up, was, whenever you're feeling, talking to a client and they raise these concerns, your job is to do this, is to listen and express empathy, okay? Like, that's number one. You always just listen. Don't try to give them, some type of solution right away. And this is so true for marriage as well, right? I think that's where we constantly fail, is we're trying to give a solution when all we have to do is listen and provide empathy. Yes, I get it. The market is it's not as what it was 2 years ago. I get it, right? Just listen and express empathy. Shake your head. Yes, I completely get it. Then you mirror their frustration. You mirror their whatever emotion they're showing. If they're frustrated, you show that frustration. No, I know, right? You say things like to confirm that what they're saying is truth, because it is. In their mind, based on the worldview that they have, they're speaking their truth. So if they're upset about it, you get a little upset about it. If they're a little frustrated about it, you get a little frustrated. If they're angry about it, you show a little bit of anger towards the situation, right? So you're listening and you're mirroring and you're saying things, I get it, I completely understand. That's so frustrating. And then you make it relatable. You start telling the stories of when it's happened to you, right? You start being relatable by saying that too has happened to me. I also bought when the interest rates were high. So I get it, because months before that, they were low and I should have bought then. But, my house, the house that I wanted, wasn't available when the interest rates were low. But I decided to go ahead and pull the trigger when the interest rates were high. So you're relatable, right? But then you also tell them what the benefits of that were. I always tell, like, what happened to me. I needed to get out of my old home, so I get it. I had to pay a higher interest rate, higher price. But guess what? My house no longer served me. I bought that house 10 years ago. I was very different from the person I was when I bought that house originally. So I wasn't going to stick to something that no longer served me. It was too small. There was a lot of bad memories in that home, as a matter of fact. It was time for us to move on. Not only did I lose out on any equity because I sold it for less. So I get you're frustrated about your interest rate, but I sold mine for less than what I bought it for. And not only that, I remodeled the whole thing. So I put hundreds of thousands of dollars in this home, so I get it. But let me tell you the benefit, right? This is where you start flipping it and going away from the worldview to the self-view. Let me tell you the benefit of why I'm so happy I moved on regardless of just latching on to trying to recover some of the money that I poured into the home or waiting until the market corrected itself. I would have still been in a house that no longer served me. And it was my job to move my family out of that environment. And I was willing to pay more for a house to be able to do that and lose out on my current home. But here are the benefits of it now. We love our home. Our girls love the home. It actually helped our marriage. It's done so much for us. We've gained equity since then. So never did I start with, you should buy because, I can get you a lower interest rate. It was telling the story, but it's relating to their frustration. It's relating to their story and then flipping it based on your own story. And all of us have a story. And these types of stories are going to be able to help your clients move on. But if you're only trying to attack it from the worldview aspect of it, only the interest rate aspect of it or the price point aspect of it, then you will always lose. Because at the end of the day, you're failing to see that they have a need that they need to fulfill, but they're stuck. They're stuck and they need your help in order to get unstuck. But that comes with a series of listening, mirroring, being relatable, and telling your story of what happened to you. And you'll be surprised how their minds change from that worldview to now going back to why they reached out to you to begin with. And maybe If they're the seller and you know the buyer wants $10,000 off, maybe now they can see why it's important they just move on. Because we have a solution for them right now. Yes, hey, this is the highest price I can get for you right now, but we have no idea in the future. If you hold on, I can't guarantee you this price. I would love to say that I can get you $30,000 more or $40,000 more in the future. I can't promise you that. And I can't even promise you that I'll be able to even get you this, what I'm getting you now, or $30,000 to $50,000 less, because we have no solution for the unknown. So the facts are, based on everything right now, this is the maximum amount that the market will bear for your house. And I did that. I brought you the highest offer for your property. Now they're thinking like, okay, because you're right. You can't offer a solution for the unknown. What if interest rates go high? What if they go lower? So we're going to sit in this place of anticipation, or we're going to make a decision. The fact is, the house is too big for you. The fact is, you're still renting. So let's find solutions based on how we can solve the problem. If the interest rate is too high, here's what we can do. We can buy down the rate. We can ask for seller closing costs. We don't have to go above list price. Those are all wins. So you go back to why they reached out to you to begin with. That's what it's all about, guys. Better and skilled agents today than even just a few years ago. That's something that Isaiah just wrote down, and that's the truth. Become a better listener. Okay, become a better listener. Become a better person that knows how to follow up. And that's the difference right now. Yes, once in a while, you'll be able to get that client off of Instagram and with one video, that one client off of TikTok with that one video that happens to go viral, but it's beyond that. The follow-up is where the magic occurs. Okay, so follow up with your past clients, and we have a specific game plan on how to do that. You present opportunities. You just talk to them. Talk to them about their home. Do they still love their home? Maybe they're thinking about investing. How about they keep the home that they bought 2-3 years ago as the investment, and you move them up into a bigger home? There's so many solutions, so many opportunities available. You got to be able to see it, or you're going to be stuck with, well, sales are down 30%. I got to tell you something. Not for us. Not for us as a whole, as a company. So you decide on which side of the aisle you'll be on, but it's going to require greater skill sets. But always talk on the self-view level, not on the worldview. Guys, I want to thank you for joining me for this episode of Mindset Mastery. I hope that this conversation today helped in being able to navigate through whatever storms are coming your way, whatever objections are coming your way, right? And be able to just direct them, because that's what they need. They need your leadership in today's market. They need the communication. They need to hear from you in today's market. So let's go out there and get it done. Talk to you soon. Bye now. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Badass Agents Podcast, brought to you by AZ & Associates and Do the Work Coaching and Consulting. You can watch this and other episodes by subscribing to our channel on YouTube or by visiting us directly at badassagents.com. And of course, you can listen to this episode and many others on your preferred podcast provider.